numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
Hello, you're listening to the podcast. So there I was. This is episode number 101. Fun in the Mach Loop.
Yeah, good stuff. So a training area over basically the entire United Kingdom, but a good bit of it.
Yeah, well, according to Sniper, the entire country was a training area.
Exactly. Never mind airliners and light civils, any of that stuff. What could possibly go wrong?
What could possibly go wrong? Yeah, Sniper.
F-15 Strike Eagle driver. Another real interesting show. One of my favorites is how he got two call signs. Divot and Sniper.
Yeah.
Divot's a great story, and he's basically running around hiding. Only he would have needed, I think, was a Hitler mustache, it sounds like.
Right. Don't run it.
Nope, not gonna.
Don't run it. Yeah, and then when you find out how Sniper came about, you'll gut laugh too, because that's actually pretty good.
That was apropos. It really was. Spent a lot of time over in England. Talked about how easy it was to confuse Lakenheath and Mildenhall. Wind up landing at the wrong airfield. Ooh. He didn't.
Yes.
But came close. A little bit of flying over some foreign territories, to include France.
Intercepted by French Mirage fighters because they didn't have dip clearances.
Yeah.
So they just ignored the French. Right. Go away, you English swine dog pigs.
Have you been taunted by this man?
Yeah, they taunted him all the way to the border, and then they went home.
Yep. What a scream. What a fun interview. Flying Strike Eagles talking to this gent who graduated from Marine Corps PLCs, was ready to go be a Marine grunt. That? And the Air Force guy said, hey, dude, we got better golf courses than BOQs.
You might want to rethink that.
Rethink that move, lad. And he did. Yeah. Oh, well.
He was in the AOR flying, over Iraq, and wondered why nobody else was flying. It was such a pretty day.
Right.
He came to a realization that day that I'm not gonna run it. I'm just teasing it.
Yeah. I'm here. Why is no one else here? Let's get out of the way and find out.
Yeah. Let's let it roll.
Don't sit on the ejection seat, Hal.
Don't sit on it.
Here comes Sniper.
About crossing the pond at night in the world's smallest cockpit on the tanker through the weather. Oh, and to the tanker crew who did that, thanks a lot. We really appreciated that. I'm just kidding. No, I'm not. Well, there I was, crossing the pond, and you could see that I wasn't exactly fun.
So there I was. I'm sure we've all been there before, doing about 550 knots on the deck, about 50 feet off the ground, in a foreign country, in a clean eagle, going up vertical, looking between the rudders, watching them shake, seeing the earth disappear below, and my G-suit's inflating. Pretty good rate. I feel a stick in my shin. Maybe I'll tell you a little bit more about that.
Oh, yeah. Been through all of that except the B in the clean eagle part and the stick in the shin. So we'll figure out what that is here in just a minute.
And the vertical tail shaking.
But that's how all great aviation tales begin. Repeat here. And my co-host, Fig, joining us. Where are you tonight, sir?
Hey, welcome to be here. I'm glad to be here. Well, welcome to be here, Fig. Yes, I am in Kearney, Missouri, just outside Kansas City.
You're not the only one with your dyslexia acting up tonight, Fig. Get after it.
I got some shit going on here. Hey, special welcome to my personal friend and our guest tonight, Sniper. Welcome.
Thanks for having me. Yes.
Yeah,
pleasure.
Glad to have you.
You got to check him for a pulse, dude.
Yeah, right.
Mr. I know he's always that way though. So I know.
All right, we'll go rock and roll. Yeah. Hey, I got the guitars already in the background. If you need me to snap
you sound like an airline captain or something, ladies and gentlemen. If you look outside the left side of the aircraft, you'll notice we're on fire. The right wing is missing, and flight attendants will be up and down the aisle shortly to prepare for landing.
How do you know the number 2 engine? How do you know we're out of gas? Because the number 2 engine is no longer on fire.
Yeah.
Got quiet.
All right. Well,
There you
so,
go.
hey,
All right.
welcome, Sniper. Sniper, another F-15 Eagle guy. I say another. I mean, suddenly you can't swing a dead cat around here without hearing the F-15 guy stories. But
Hitting an eagle, strike eagle guy.
yes,
Yeah.
however, they're never boring. So, and I already had a sneak preview at a couple of his stories, and I had to tell him, stop talking. I want to wait till, I hear him again. So,
Catch him live.
yeah, how did you get interested in aviation to start with, Sniper?
Man, that's always a great question to ask. Normally they ask me, how do you stay such good looking and in such great shape in your mid-50s?
I was going to ask that too.
I'll take that other question instead. No. Not like a lot of kids, man. I loved aviation as long as I could remember. As a little boy, just growing up, drawing pictures on airplanes. I think I went to an air show down in San Diego when they had the mighty F4 Rhino, and it was doing nice pass. I remember looking down the tubes of those engines, just hearing the roar, and I could see the afterburners glowing. And I think I kind of got the bug then when I was probably first, second grade. And then my dad took me to an air show. My mom and dad, we all went up to the air show up there at Edwards Air Force Base. And I see at that time they had the T-38s that were flying the Thunderbirds.
Right.
And I just loved it, man. And I my whole life, as long as I can remember, I wanted to be in aviation. I was always building model airplanes, radio controlled airplanes. I still like to build them today.
This is kind of a reoccurring theme. Don't feel like the Lone Ranger. Everybody's got the same kind of story. I mean, not exactly like that, but almost like that.
It seems to fall into two camps. I always wanted to do it, or I went and took the test because my college roommate wanted to do it really bad, and I said, "Oh, what the hell." And then he winds up being the one.
There's only been one of those guys. That was Father Mike. He was also an F-15 guy. Holy shnikes.
Yeah, right. So, all right. So,
yeah. So, the moral on that one is when you pursue things that you're passionate about, I mean, they just become a part of your life, right? I mean, it's intertwined.
Yeah.
That's the way aviation's been for me. It's just my whole life. It revolves around that and pursuing that passion. And I love every single day, and I still love flying jets.
Right.
When it's your passion, it's not so much work anymore, is it?
It's not. It's my wife's always asked me why am I still smiling when I'm going to work? Get to fly jets around the country, and I love flying fighters. That was really what I wanted to do. I said I wanted to be a pilot, but I really wanted to be a fighter pilot. I mean, that was the big goal at a young age when I was in grade school. That's what I wanted to do. That was my dream, and I got to do that. And I feel blessed and fortunate to still be alive today, like we all do, especially with all the antics that we've gone through. But I started flying when I was in high school, actually. 16 years old, and I got my private pilots when I was 17. Just flying around local area in the LA area. They're kind of busy airspace, studying. Got a job and paid for my own license, my private pilot's license, all that stuff. I had a motorcycle to get back and forth to work. After I became an Eagle Scout, my dad got me a motorcycle. He felt I was responsible enough for that, so
wow,
I was able to do that.
Nice.
So I did all that, and it revolved my whole life. And then I went to college, commissioned ROTC, and that I got a little story there about because I really wanted to go in the Marines. When I first started looking at aviation, I think I have huge respect for the Marines and the mission and everything. But I still did the Air Force ROTC, so I did PLCs. You guys are all familiar with that, I'm sure.
Yeah, we were both PLC.
Big and I are both PLC grads.
Yeah, so I was at juniors there back in Quantico, and I was all ready to rock. Going to the Air Force or going to the Marines, it was awesome. I mean, I loved it. It was all about ground pounding and supporting the guys on the ground. And I had an air contract at the time.
Right.
And I remember going into a second year. My first year I did the PLCs, and then the second year I had to go into the Air Force ROTC camp. And I remember the difference was just like night and day. And the Marines, we're carrying around M16s, A2s, running around in the mud, getting dirty, humping around the back. And then when we go to the Air Force side, it was kind of like playing volleyball and different rules. And I remember I walked into my Air Force ROTC guy and said, you know what, I'm not going to, I can't do this Air Force thing. I really want to go in the Marines. In fact, I wanted to go fly Hornets. I thought that had been an awesome mission to go fly. So that was what I told him. And he said, I really want you to think about it. I want you to come back and talk to me in tomorrow about it because I got something to tell you. Like, all right. So I went back, told my PLC guy that, hey, he wants to have another discussion with me, but I was ready to rock, because I was going to go to seniors that following year, but it was that was the cutoff point. Yep. Bottom line was the Air Force guy brought me in. He said, hey, you know what? I know you're a hard charger. You want to go, fight wars and fly fast jets and all that stuff. And the Marine Corps is very appealing to you, but you need to consider right now you're young and single, and you're probably not going to be young and single your whole life. And he was right about that. And the family life is going to be quite a bit different. The Air Force has some of the best MWR, and we're specialists at what we do. And we don't operate off of a shoestring. And, obviously there's that little inter-service rivalry there.
A little bit.
That he was bringing up. But he's like, hey, but you'll appreciate all those things one day. You don't appreciate them now, but you will one day. And so, okay. And I actually thought about it very, very long and hard. And I ended up switching out and going into the Air Force because at that time we had that. Remember, there was the reduction in force and all that stuff that was going on. So it was kind of a big decision.
Early 90s there, Sniper?
Yeah, late 80s, early 90s. And I wasn't, at that point, I love helicopters, but I wasn't wanting to fly helicopters. And I thought, hell, man, I might end up getting a helicopter out of the Marines.
Yeah, you will.
And the MWR. So I decided to go. But I love I love helicopters. My first helicopter flight was over at Quantico. It was in that was it the Sea King or something with the big
CH-53
monstrous blade on it.
Yeah,
CH-53 is amazing. Yeah.
Sea Stallion.
So I did that. Yeah, the Sea Stallion. So I did that, and then I ended up switching. I went Air Force ROTC, and then I commissioned. I went to pilot training out there, and then got a fighter. I was fortunate to get a fighter out of pilot training, and then I did 2 tours in the Strike Eagle.
Where was your pilot training base?
I was in Lubbock. I did Reese Air Force Base. Okay. I think they shut it down now, but I did Reese Air Force Base, and
it closed it after you finished because you wore all the jets out.
Yeah, we had the T-37 and the T-38 at the time. I think we started out with 60 some pilots, and I think we ended up with around 40-ish. And it was a bad time when they were looking to cut people, but we had the 37, the 38, and then we had the T-1A Jayhawk that they were just kind of bringing in for the dual track system that they hadn't actually installed, and that was right at my transition point.
What year did you get your wings?
You know what? I almost didn't get my wings, though.
Oh, boy.
Our whole class almost didn't get our wings.
Yeah, so I saw that in
all
the
right,
notes.
so here's...
What's that about?
So, you know how Air Force, right? Everyone's running around, second lieutenant and first lieutenant, so the IPs and the captains, and then there's some guys there in the field, grade officers that are all kind of worked up, a little bit uptight ATC. We called it the snow cone command, right?
Yeah.
The patch. We had some generals that were coming in for graduations and stuff from some of the guys, because our guard guys would go through the same pilot training class, which I think was the best kept secret in the world.
Right.
Was going into the guard, knowing in advance what jet you're
I tell that to everybody I talk to. If I'd have only known then what I know now, I'd have committed any felony necessary to get a guard job. I mean,
yeah, who knew?
Yeah, the guard is such a good deal. Yeah. I mean, all these guys that were going into pilot, so we're all competing for slots, right?
Yeah.
Where everybody's competing, getting ranked. You're not really necessarily competing against your buds, but you're all getting graded. And then at some point, There's a number 1 and there's a number 0. So, that was the landscape there at Reese. We had a lot of fun, and I remember after assignment night, we were all having an amazing time. And the crud table, having the beers,
full contact billiards, crud.
Full contact billiards.
Yeah.
And it's a time in your life, with the military, where you have you're still that level of juvenile, but then you still got that monster responsibility that's coming up, and that whole thing kind of just melds and collects, and there just builds up that camaraderie and esprit de corps that you really don't ever see in the corporate world. When you're in a squadron and military organization. So anyway. We're in the O Club and things are getting rowdy. We're rocking around, having a great time. We've all got our assignments. And I remember this 06, and there was this big dog pile that started happening. And then it started getting actually kind of aggressive. And you guys were dogpiling on there. And I remember I was dogpiling in there. And this colonel comes back. He yanks me off the back of this dog pile. He goes, "You're not getting your wings. Not a single one of you MFers are getting your wings that are anywhere in this dog pile." I mean, he was pissed because remember we had the generals that were going to be in there for the graduation and stuff. It was a big dog pile. I mean, it was literally our whole class.
Yeah.
We had like 30 or 40 guys, and it sounded very serious. As a butter bar, have some colonel yank you off by your flight suit. They were yanking everybody off. At the very bottom of the dog pile was a 2-star general. And he was cheering it.
Yeah.
And he was like 3 sheets to the wind, and he was cheering. He goes, "What are you doing, Colonel?" He goes, "We're having fun here. Hadn't you ever heard of having fun?" And he pulled out, everybody was at the bottom, and everybody was on top of him. He was at the bottom, and he was at the center of that whole thing. And of course, then the colonel laughed. He was a little bit embarrassed, and then we were all able to continue.
So that defused the whole thing. You lost your wings for this long.
Yeah.
That's
Right.
great.
Everybody lost their wings for that long.
That's right.
Until the general was at the bottom of the pile. So I guess it was kind of funny.
Yep.
Where'd you,
That's where we used to carry the fake name tags, Captain Ben Dover.
Yeah.
And,
Rich Gazinia,
yeah.
Gazinia, yeah, Richard Gazinia.
Carlos Fontana. So where did you go to the FTU for the F-15 then?
When I finished up at Reese, I was on the casual status there for a few months, and then I went to Holloman, did lead-in fighter training there. We call it LIFT, down there in Alamogordo, New Mexico, with Nichols, the bar. I don't know have you guys been down there? And there's a little shack out there called Nichols.
No.
We all had a lot of
Been a week or
good
two
time.
since I've been to Alamogordo.
Yeah,
I don't think I've ever been
went
there.
through there
Middle of nowhere, man.
I had a fuel stop there a few times, so
Yeah.
across countries, but never really left the flight line.
Yeah.
Out in the middle of nowhere. It's there's nothing to do except have learn how to fly fighters and drink beer at Nichols and have good debriefs. And it was still a good time in the Air Force when we actually had those kinds of that sort of environment. We had F4s out there that were from the Germans, which I actually later investigated a mishap that happened out there because I got involved in safety while I was in the Air Force. And then they had the stink bug, we call it, the 117.
Okay.
It was out there, plus the drones that were all flying around, the F-100s. I don't think they had the F-16 drones yet, but they did have the F-100s with the hard light AB. You could hear those things banging out. And then we flew the Smurf jets, which are essentially like you have there, the T-38, painted them up in blue, and they put a gun pipper on there. And it was basically a heaters type thing with a little mini gun reticle
Nice.
on there. That was about 6-8 weeks, I think it was,
The
through the trading.
Holloman Air Force Base, correct me if I'm wrong, Sniper, sits on the east side of the White Sands Missile Range, restricted area there?
Yeah, it's on the east side of the Wismars, yeah. East side of the Wismars. There's a lot of history at that base, too. And they even have some animals. I don't know if you guys are hunters or not, but they have these things called oryx that are out there. They've got these big old, I think they're from Africa. They got these big old horns that huge. They're like giant goats.
Well, they did some nuclear tests there in the 40s, and that's used to be a white-tailed deer, and it turned into one of those things, I think.
Yeah. You know what? That's probably what they were. And they turned into that with the radiation. And they had I believe they even have that, what is it, the bacteria testing and stuff out there with all the animal testing and the monkeys and the viruses and all that stuff in that base. It's way out in the middle of nowhere.
We used to actually, when I was in missile school, we used to go up there from El Paso and do some backpacking in the mountains up that way. So, yeah. Pretty interesting.
Out there by
place
Ruidoso, right?
Yep. So,
yeah, it's beautiful. Outcroft.
So you did fighter lead in there. Where did you go to learn to fly the F-15? F-15.
So at that point, we headed over to Luke Air Force Base after that.
Okay.
Luke was where the big schoolhouse was. The Triple Nickel has a great storied history. World famous, highly respected Triple Nickel. I think they're still in business out there in Aviano. Great squadron. Guys would come in there. Old craniums would come in there and drink at the bar. That was something that we had in the Air Force. It was always really nice. We had our own squadron bars, and we had a bunch of Vipers out there. And the C model, all of that stuff moved over to Eglin or Tyndall, I think, at the time. So it was just pure dark rays at the time.
And then did you stay there for your first assignment squadron, or did you go somewhere else?
No, it was just purely FTU. We did the Siri training between the training, the lift and RTU. And then we got our assignments out of there, which I really wanted to go to Europe. So that's where I went.
Sweet.
Ended up going to Europe. USAFE, yeah, it was super amazing flying over there.
Nice.
And that was in Mildenhall?
Yeah, very near there. Yeah, their sister base is Mildenhall.
Yeah.
No, what base were you at?
Lake and Heath.
Lakenheath. Yes.
Yeah, that's right next to Milton. It's literally they're like almost joint bases. They're separated, but it's like almost like
Easy to land at the wrong airfield if you aren't paying attention.
There's a story. One of the old squadron commanders actually, EGUN is the base identifier for Mildenhall.
Yeah.
EGUN, Egan, and ours was EGUL, Eagle, for Lakenheath. And yeah, one of our, and the runways are actually parallel almost to each other. They look it's almost like Orange County, Long Beach, if you guys are familiar with that. They're pretty close to each other, and they have the same orientation. I remember one of the new squadron commanders was bringing up, for the sister squadron, not ours, he was bringing up a 4-ship of Strike Eagles up to initial. And he was calling for the pitch out. He lined up on the wrong runway. He lined up at Mildenhall.
Oops.
So he got a call sign called Egan.
Oh yeah, because it's Hey, so if my memory serves, Lakenheath was where the fighters were, and Mildenhall was the transports, tankers, that sort of thing.
Yeah. So Lakenheath had all of the fighters. It has a lot of storied histories in there. They even had, I think, it goes all the way back to P-47s or F-100s. All the hardened air shelters and everything were there. And then on the other side, Mildenhall was just the tankers. I think it was the 22nd or 22 or something air refueling squadron. And they also had a special operations C-130s. They were out there, the MCs, if I'm not mistaken, MC-130s, and the helicopters. And I think even for a time, the SR-71 would occasionally stage out of that location.
Okay.
It was a neat base. It was a super, super wonderful experience. I loved it over there. I loved the people over there, and it was like all the wives that would come over there, even the pilots. If you go over to England and you just think it's the United States with an accent, you're going to have a bad time there.
Yeah,
it's really a foreign country, truly. They just happen to speak the same language, but it was so much fun, and I love the Brits.
So we always say, right? 2 countries separated by a common language.
Yeah.
So you kind of teased me in person about some of your stories, but one thing I took away from all of it was flying for you in Europe, over there in England, especially the whole damn country was a military training area, right?
Yeah.
And so that's pretty cool. You take off and go fly, but you were, it's not that big of an airspace to start with, and all the other people that are there could jump you. I mean, it was fights on almost everywhere you went, right?
It was. Yeah, it's very different than when you're talking about like Luke and Holloman, where you had the IR routes and the VR routes. You'd be very specific on where you could fly. But over in Europe, at least in the UK, the whole country was a war zone going on. I mean, it was the biggest war where no one died from true enemy fire. But you would have the ability to what they call embellish anybody if you squawked a certain code. And that meant, you're ready to fight. And it was literally from the surface all the way up to the moon. And you had to avoid, obviously, certain airways that went up north and south between like London and towards Scotland. But it was outstanding. Sweet. It was wonderful.
Oh,
and
that's cool.
The most beautiful. You had to plan everything. Like we'd have a big mission planning cell in the morning. You put out your attack lines or something if you're going to go into your low level. And you draw little circles around like towns and stuff that you're supposed to avoid. Or you could do you pretend that they're SA, surface air missiles threats, and you could threat react off of them and hit your target. But it was super fun. You could go blasting along the top of roads, and you'd see a bunch of. I remember we had so we were down to like 250 feet, and we'd always push it up close to 600 inbound from the IP. And we'd go over these mountains, and one of those areas out there in Wales was called Snowdonia. And Snowdonia was where all these people were thinking they're peacefully backpacking around with no noise. And I remember for a 4-ship, we do this combination like this. We have 2 and 2
battle
back here. And this would be about 30 seconds trail, right? Yeah. Battle box, about 30 seconds trail, or a little bit further sometimes. So the other guy'd be in wedge, and he'd just be flying off the one guy. And I remember he just dusted off these people. I just see these little red specks ahead. And so they you don't even hear us, right? You don't even hear us until they're gone, right? Because the noise follows back. So these people ducked down, and I remember just going up right over the top of these guys. That they were looking that way, and then once again I went right up over the top, And I happened to
Inverted.
capture it right.
So you're looking up
inverted,
at
of
him.
course.
Nice.
Yeah. So
And just literally like giving him a haircut.
So for our listeners that aren't going to see this visually, he's a typical fighter pilot explaining what's going on. He's got both hands going, and then when he was talking about passing over them, he was passing over inverted.
With his hand upside down, yeah.
Upside down hand, inverted.
You backhanded him all right. Boom.
And I think this literally, I mean, you're going pretty fast, right? But you could still see. I mean, you can see the people in the mountains. And I saw this one. I just happened to catch it as I was upside down, right over the top. Just a couple hundred feet above these hikers. And he turned around and looked at the same time, and his like girlfriend was on top of this rock and like literally fell off a rock. Boom! Right over the top of him. But it was an amazing low level structure. We flight against Harriers, Tornadoes. All the foreigners would come in there, the Vipers, and there'd be tankers, and C-130s would be rocket. There it is. Yeah, there you can see some. Yeah,
so on the video, I put up a picture of a collage that he sent me. Bunch of Eagles, and then a Harrier as well in there.
Yeah,
So,
that's a GR7. It's got 4 hard points.
Yeah,
look at that shit.
Yeah, it was amazing, and you can still see it on. I think. I feel like when we first got there in the mid 90s, that was when, kind of the internet was starting out a little bit, computers and all that. But all those enthusiasts over there, they're super into it. They track you they literally like have different radios tuned to different frequencies. And so they could listen into our chatter on our training freaks, on our training nets. And they would find out the schedules, and they'd have other guys that'd be relaying over at Lakenheath. They'd be like over at the fence outside the perimeter taking pictures of the tail numbers and everything. And then they'd track us going out towards Wales, and we go into this area called Mach Loop. And I think that's kind of when it started getting more PR and a bunch of great pictures. And those are some of them, some of the pictures going through Mach Loop. But it was so much, it was exciting. I mean, it's gorgeous over there. It's all green. Right. You're hauling the mail. And then all this vapor coming off the wings. And then there's this one area, I think they have one in the U.S. called Star Wars Canyon, but I think the real Star Wars Canyon is over there in the U.K. It starts out in a very wide funnel, and then it just keeps getting narrower and narrower and narrower. And the deal would be, that your flight lead would go in there. If you're the flight lead, you try to spit your wingman out. You'd be maneuvering in there in that wedge formation. But once you got kicked out, it was very hard to get back into that canyon because it was so damn tight, and you'd be belly up to the terrain,
look at that.
Mountains and stuff. Yeah, there it is. There's Mach Loop. We'd go in one way and out the other.
Okay.
Well, that's pretty
And there's
cool.
like a castle right at the end there too, and like an old ancient castle that you'd see right there at the lake. There's like a little lock right down in there.
That's pretty cool. All right, so you were based in Lakenheath, but you guys, did you do some exercises or leave the base, go around? Did you have little deployments here or there on your first tour?
Yeah,
how did that work?
Yeah, we were all over the place. We would never say no. I remember I was our wing commander, OG or something. Always he had to answer the phone. Yes, sir, I can. How may I help you? And you give me your name or whatever. It was always yes to everything. So we were spread everywhere. We'd go to all the different exercises. The Excalibur exercises were great. They'd be with the French and the Norwegians, and the Belgians would be out there doing stuff with us all over mainland. I mean, you'd literally flying over on the low level stuff, passing these old French towns, and you could every one of these little towns in Europe would have these big clock towers that were 500 years old or something, and you could literally read the time off of those things. So we'd always be doing these exercises with all of our foreign brethren, and then of course we deployed a ton. We went to Aviano Air Base, spent a lot of time there, and Incirlik, the Lick over there in Turkey, the northeastern side of the Mediterranean. They're a beautiful country, amazing food and people and experience. So we did that. That was the Northern Watch thing. Northern Watch was the big thing that we did. I think it was called Operation Provide Comfort 1 and 2. We did that. All of the exercises on Portugal, over in Italy, that we were a Tiger Squadron. So we did all the Tiger meets again in Turkey and Balıkesir.
What's that mean, Tiger Squadron?
Yeah, it was not every squadron has like a CAD. tiger as a symbol, and they were kind of dying. It was an old breed. It was like an old legacy type.
Okay. Mascot?
Following of a fraternity, if you will. Yeah. We had the tiger. Like, we were bold tigers in the 391st, which was a tiger squadron. And then we had a mascot for a tiger over there in Lake and Heath. We're the Black Panthers, the 494th. So we were kind of given an honorary membership, even though we weren't a true tiger. But you know how a lot of the other squadrons are, the Stingers and whatever, the Top Hatters and stuff. But we were a tiger squadron. So we'd go to the tiger meets, and they'd have these amazing air meets where everybody'd get together and try and do tactical workshops and stuff. But it was, you know, really just a time to bond and trade stories like we're doing right now, and drink beer and learn about their tactics. And that's where you see a lot of these pictures of these guys that are enthusiasts of these jets that are painted up like tigers.
Yeah.
You've seen their tails. They all look like tigers. That's all. They're all going on the tiger meet. There it is. Yeah.
What does keys out of Portugal mean? What's that about?
Yeah. So that's where I was going. That's the opening story.
Yeah.
So
you guys want to hear that?
yeah, absolutely.
No, was that the opening story?
That's the opening tease. Yeah.
Keys out of Portugal?
Yep.
Well, shit. Let's hear
Yeah.
it.
Remember, he's in the vertical.
Yeah. So these jets would be all over the place. And so we were a jet was down there in Monte Real, I think it was, where they had the A7 Corsairs with the Portuguese. And that was about it right there. That picture.
Yeah, I've got a picture of an F-15 in the vertical. So
there was a broken, I think that was my Finney flight right there, as a matter of fact.
right.
We had a jet that was broken. And of course, unlike the Marines, where you can kind of work on your airplanes, we had to have all the maintainers work on our airplanes because they're specialists, like we were talking about earlier. And so they were out there, and it was a long drive from like Lisbon to Monte Real. They all piled in this car, this little van car that they had. And I remember he said, why don't you drive? We drove for seemed like several hours to get up to our broken jet to take it back to Lake and Heath, which is only about an hour and a half at the most or something in an F-15 at home. But it was a hell of a long drive to get up to our base. They'd done everything that they could do to fix the jet. And so I remember strapping it on. And they said, hey, we just got a request for you, if you could, because we're really looking to get back home tonight. But if you could at least kind of give us a little bit of a morale, high-speed pass over there in Portugal, we really appreciate it. And I go, sure, we can do that.
These were the maintainers that were asking for that?
That is the maintainers, guys. They love that stuff, right? I mean, they want to have a little morale building.
Yeah.
You're wanting
Who doesn't like morale? Who doesn't like a morale pass?
Give them a high-speed pass. Yeah, morale pass. And, of course, I proved it with the tower and everything. I asked them if I could do this. Took off, went around the box pattern so I could, do a nice downwind, get a good picture, and then come haul me up on basically a hyper low initial, right under the number, just under the Mach, right over the top of these guys. And I remember just smashing over the top of them, and then just pulling right up into the double rate beeper for our maximum G's, looking back over my tails, seeing them shake, watching the earth just disappear like a rocket ship. And your G suit starts inflating too. It's got that high flow G suit, and you put all your stuff in your G suit pocket. And I felt this damn poke in my leg, and I'm like, "Oh shit, what's this poke in my leg?" Roll up over the top, inverted, level it out, and I realized I opened up my G suit pocket, and I see I still got the keys to the rental car.
Oh shit!
All the maintenance guys, and that was the only piece of transportation that they had to get back home. So that was it there. Oh. And I pulled it up over the top, and what are you going to do? I'm not going to go back. So we went over to Lake. And at that time, we were actually still doing. We actually displaced our base over to RAF Marham, I think it was. And we'd always call in, code 1, code 2, code 3 on the radio, and the ops guys, 50 miles out or whatever, 10 out, code 1. They said, hey, that's great. Do you have the rental car keys on the radio? And I said, yes, I do. You go, okay, because the guys have been stuck there and they're super pissed. All right. Landed. Yeah, I had the rental
They're
car
mechanics.
keys.
They should have been able to hotwire that damn thing.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah. I think they were stuck there for a couple of days, actually, after that stunt.
Well, so there's the difference, really, between an Air Force fighter pilot and a Marine attack pilot. We would have gone back and landed and chucked those keys at them.
Yeah.
Isn't that right, Rico?
Yeah, absolutely. And then gotten another high-speed pass.
Yeah.
Because you can.
Oh, that is a great story. I didn't know where you were going with that, but as soon as you said, "Hey, they wanted me to drive," I'm thinking, "Oh, the thing that poked him was the keys." That's
Yeah.
That's
Whoops.
awesome story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right,
I think they went from happy face to sad face pretty quick, about the same speed I was going.
What about closest to death? Flying a fighter jet out of Aviano.
Oh, man. Probably a bunch of times. You know what? There's 2 times when I know for sure that I was pretty close to probably Morton out. But one time I didn't know about. This time I did, though. The Aviano one you're asking me about, I can tell you about.
Did you ever have your hand on the ejection handle, Sniper? Did you ever have your did you think, "Oh shit, this is it," and put your hand on the handle?
No.
Okay.
I never had that happen. I don't know that I would have been able to make it happen. If I probably would have after this one. We were going up over in Aviano. One of the things that I know that Hoover was talking a little bit about the Strike Eagle and the air-to-air capability of it, or the VFM. But it's actually a pretty good maneuvering jet when you're clean, of course. But when you're loaded up with all the bombs and the tanks, everything, it becomes quite piggy. But we're usually clean going out into the training area there south of Aviano, out over the Adriatic, and we do some training when we're waiting to do our regular combat sorties. I love doing BFM, the high aspect BFM. You guys did that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, turn away, check away, tapes on.
Yep,
Yeah.
basic fighter maneuvering for those just tuning in.
Love it, loving it. That's one of, you start out totally equal, right?
Yeah.
And the whole idea behind that is so no one has an advantage, and you have to create the advantage just through your maneuvering and your energy management. And so one of the big things on BFM, of course, for your listeners, is you're trying to take away the maneuvering room, right, from the other guy, because any distance that you have,
of course, keeping a 500-foot bubble betwixt the 2 jets as you create your neutral pass.
Well, that's what you're supposed to do, right?
500 feet, 5 inches. What's the difference?
Well, and there's the thing. Everybody's eye was calibrated a little differently, it seemed like, because, I did some, nose-to-nose passes with guys that I thought, I think we were both inside the 50-foot bubble at that point.
Yeah.
But there's because like you said, you don't want to give your opponent any advantage of turning room by giving them extra room to turn on you. So you take that away at the neutral pass, right?
That's what you have to do, right? Take away the turning room. So both guys, and you're doing what, 900 knots of closure, right? When you check away, you're just at visual range. You check back in the butterfly setup, and you come in high aspect pass, and you're pointing beak to beak at the other guy.
Yeah.
You're trying to take some shots, pre-merge shots, and everything. But you're at the same time you're looking through the HUD, and you're trying to take away that maneuvering room with that, like you said, the ROE bubble, with the 1,000 or 500 foot bubble that you have. And so each guy is, as you're closing in, and just only microseconds to make that correction, you're taking away just a little bit more turning room. So this guy I was flying against at the time, he was really great. Weapons school guys, super, super good at air. And so I was priding myself on, because I thought I was pretty good too. And so we were both like stealing each other's turning room from each other. And I remember I pitched up just a little bit, just to take away a little bit more turning room away from him as we're closing in, beak to beak. At the same time, I could see his nose pitch down a little bit.
Oh shit! I see.
And we literally passed so close. I ducked. That was the time I ducked.
Because that's going to help.
I thought we actually.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I mean, I thought we were going to hit. I mean, so I wouldn't have been able to eject out of that deal.
Yeah.
But we dusted each other off with just the thickness of our paint. And I remember just seeing the top of his jet go over the top. As I ducked, like, boom, over the top. And then, of course, nobody called knock it off, right? We just went right up into the high aspect BFM maneuvering, both of us going up into the vertical.
Single circle, double circle in the vertical. There you go.
Yeah, it was amazing. But it was one of those deals where we fought, until we were bingo fueling. We came back down. It was all pretty quiet. And then I remember Crocus said, at the end of the debrief, he goes, "That's one of those things you don't ever want to bring up to anybody." How close we were. Like, oh man, I hear you. We both cleaned our pants out after that one, but that was probably the the closest I was to probably not coming home ever. And the other time, I remember sharing it with one of my mentors his name was Luke, and he flew C models out of Eglin. He became an aggressor pilot. And during that college experience I was talking about, the Air Force guys were able to do this thing. I think it was called PDP, Professional Development Program. We'd kind of like be an intern.
Okay.
And so I was chosen to be an intern up at Nellis Air Force Base with the Aggressor Squadron, 64th at the time. And I actually had related this story to Luke, my mentor. He was basically getting out of the Air Force. He was flying Vipers at the Virginia National Guard at the time. Telling him how close it was. And he's like, yeah. He goes, you know what? He goes, well, that's the second time then. I go, what are you talking about? He's like, the first time was with me. And I said, what? I don't remember. He goes, remember you're up there with us in the summer doing our PDP and you're getting the backseat riding the Viper. And of course, the aggressors duplicate all these different threat profiles, right? So some of them are air to air, some of them are air to ground. We were doing a fencer profile, which was a low level attack profile and I was in the backseat of the Viper. And I do remember the flight. We came up cresting up over the mountain, just like he was, like we were used to do in Wales, flipping upside down and rolled back down. I remember, God damn, we get close to the ground on these things. It was new to me because I was a civilian at the time, and how fast and how low you get. And he says, man, I actually was pulling everything I could pull to get out of that maneuver, and I thought we were going to hit the ground. He goes, that was the closest I ever came in my life to hitting the ground.
Well, I guess ignorance.
So that was when I was in college.
You didn't know that? Yeah. Oh, shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, you didn't know that, right?
I didn't know that. I didn't know that until after I was telling him some years later.
Wow. How about that?
Oh, man, that stuff's terrifying sometimes.
We feel lucky sometimes.
Yeah. So we brought you in. We introduced you as Sniper, but you were also known as Divot.
Divot.
Yeah. So can you tell us about each of those call signs?
Sure. Yeah, sure. The Divot one. The Divot call sign. So I was down in Incirlik, young lieutenant at the time. And you guys been down to Incirlik before?
I have not. You been there, Fig?
Yeah.
Okay.
Your world kind of country deal.
Yeah.
So I wanted, you show up, you want to be a hard charger, you want to look sharp, and you're going to your first combat deployment. And of course, the Air Force, we don't have the hair that you guys had in the Marines, right? The high and tights. But I wanted to make sure that I had a high and tight. So I had hair probably about like this long, maybe a little bit shorter than this, maybe right around here.
Couple 3 inches.
And
Couple 3 inches.
That? Yeah, a little bit of hair.
Okay.
It's a little bit darker than I got.
Can't see you. Let me describe. He's got a ridiculously beautiful full head of hair, premature, turned gray or
Heavy
white. However, it is gorgeous. Think what's the actor that used to play Marcus Welby, MD?
Robert Young.
Robert Young. No, the other guy, the younger one. He's
James Brolin.
Brolin. Yeah. James Brolin. He's got James Brolin hair.
There you go.
I was going in the barber, right, to get a haircut there. Right at the end, came in, left the like a squadron. I'll come back, and before they closed, went in there to go get a haircut, and so I wanted to get like a Marine type cut, super high and tight, right? Like literally as much hair as Fig has on his sidewalls.
Which isn't.
So that's exactly what I got from this guy that could barely speak English, the barber there. Hello, Aubrey, how are you? What do you want? Okay. So he starts giving me this high and tight thing, and he starts off on the sides.
Oh boy! And
just cleans me up like I had no hair basically on the side. You remember the Bow Wow Wow singer? Remember from Annabelle or whatever her name is. So he cleans me all the way up, all the way around. And literally, the timing could not be worse. At that moment, when he was done with my sidewalls, with basically zero double aught, freaking power went out. At the whole base.
Oh, no.
Right? And so we're all sitting here, okay, that's kind of normal-ish, but not normal-ish. We can wait it out. But it was closing time. And so we're trying to communicate here. We're waiting. he tells me to get out. Starts taking off my little neck thing and says, "You're done." Basically, I can't have this hair on here.
No.
Nope. I was worried, right? Here I am.
All right.
I think I was a second lieutenant still at the time. So that was it. I ended up having this hair 0 on the side, and then on top. You ever seen that cartoon with the Wile E. Coyote, the wolf, the sheepdog?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That would look like me. But the good news was, because I had, like a good Air Force little officer, I had my little hat, so I could put that on and tuck everything underneath it, right?
Yeah, so it just looked like you had a shaved head completely. With
it looked like it just looked like a regular Marine without the garrison hat, but the blue one. So I'd go back to the dorms, and I remember I was so worried about it. I went back to the dorms, and I was late, kind of just stayed in there, and then I knew we had an early push in the morning. So I just stayed there for the night, and I left my hat on when I went in there. That was it. Normally
Sleep in your hat?
Yeah, no. Well, Air Force, so we didn't have a roommate.
Oh, there you go.
So yeah, I could take my hat off. Morning time comes around. I make sure I got my hat on, and I put that on. Go into the other side of the base, the hardened air shelter side of it. Got this giant vaulted door that you got to open. It's like concrete filled thing. And I remember walking into the squadron, and as you walk into the squadron, you take off your hat, right? You put it in your flight suit pocket. I had to do that because otherwise you'd be charged a beer or something. You got your hat on in the hat.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I go walking in there between this vaulted corridor, and our squadron was actually down the Has a little ways, the hallway. But you had to go by the duty desk in order to get to our squadron. Oh, boy. And I take my hat off, and just as I take my hat off and put it in my pocket, I round the corner just past the duty desk and make a beeline down the hallway. And there's the general. It was there.
Oh no!
And of course, everybody else in the squadron sees this too, right? The Vetco and everything. And I just go walking. And he goes, "Lieutenant," and I hear that, and I'm the only freaking lieutenant. I was the youngest guy in the squadron at the time. "Lieutenant," and I just kept walking. I never turned around. And then he goes, "Lieutenant," and of course the field grade officer goes, "Dude, that shit, you need to go back." I'm like, "Yes, sir." So I go back in there. I go running back up. Yes, sir, General." And he looks at me. He goes, "You mind explaining what's on your G-damn noggin?" And I explained the whole story to him. There, sheepdog. That's it.
Looking like a sheepdog. Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah. "You mind explaining what's on your G-damn noggin?" And I explained the whole story to him, just like I said. "Yeah, sir, I was in there, and the power went out there, and Barber couldn't give me another haircut." And he looked at me, and everybody else thought I was going to be hosed for this. And he just busted out with laughter. He goes, "That's the funniest goddamn story I've ever heard. You looks like you got a goddamn divot on your noggin. Get that fixed later." And he's laughing, and everybody's laughing. So that's how I ended up getting the divot.
Man.
Oh, yeah.
I can almost see him like Fred Gwynn and my cousin Vinny. "You mocking me?"
Yeah. Mocking me, man.
What is that? What's what?
So I got to march around with that for a little while, which was kind of fun, at least for the day, till the barber opened back up again.
Nice. So yeah, Sam the sheepdog is what you're looking like. That's beautiful.
So divot. That's you can't just like you can't get away from that. I mean, the general kind of gave you that call.
I was happy with that one. That was good.
So when did Sniper?
Sniper came out later. It was it was actually, again, we were flying out there with the Hornets, and man, those things could maneuver. Those Hornets, that they could do some real drill tricks there at high AOA, but so could the Mud Hen. The Strike Eagle was pretty good. You could stand on its tail with the full grunt. We had the big engines over at Lakenheath, so we had, I don't know what they have now, but we had about 29,000 pounds of thrust per engine, so 58,000 pounds of thrust with about a 50,000 pound jet. So you had better than 1-to-1 thrust, and you could really reef the thing around. And we didn't have any AOA restrictions at all with our jet. The same way that like the HAL limits you on the F-16 a little bit. Ours, you could kind of pull it up. We had some artificial units on the AOA, so we went flying out there against these Hornets, and same deal out in the Adriatic. And I remember getting into these rolling scissors with this Hornet. And their nose rate, they could really jack that up, but they didn't have the thrust that we had. So I could always pull back and escape out and then roll back around. So we got into this big rolling scissors over the Adriatic. And we, of course, the radar missiles aren't going to work in that situation. So we're trying to basically go for guns, right? So we're doing heaters and guns on that. And we kept rolling around. And I remember every time I'd put the pipper on him, he'd come out of the HUD, right? We wouldn't get the radar frames on him. And I ended up finally unloading the whole gun basically after the fight on this guy. And I called a kill. I go, kill, F-18, whatever, knock it off, all that stuff. We come back in, and I was super proud of myself, happy. And then we do the standard debrief, and we're all looking at everybody's tape. And he goes, "You got a guns kill and a Hornet, huh?" I go, "Oh, yeah." Look at the tape, do all the analysis on there. There was not a single freaking round that made it onto that Hornet except one. And that was way out of the criteria, right? You're not going to get a kill for that. And that one just how it moves around when you do your VTR tape review. Okay. So the triangle radar frames where the bullets are actually going to land and go right there. Boom! I got one on on a noggin, and that was it. One round. So I go, you calling a single shot kill with a
it was a kill shot, right? Though. Yeah. It was one. It was the kill shot. It doesn't count.
It doesn't meet the criteria. That was a golden BB. So there was kind of a nickname to sniper, and we ended up developing that in our own little group in our squadron scheduling shop there. I was a scheduler at the time, and so they kept calling me sniper, and then we ended up having
nicely played, lads. Well done. That's good. So
there you go. So and then I'll move that 90 degrees up, and then there you go.
So Sticks just put up what a scissors fight looks like on the video. So you ran over a couple terms here. I'd like to circle back to, if you would tell folks what a mud hen is and what you mean when you're talking about heaters and guns.
Okay. Yeah, the mud hen, man. That's what we look like. With the C models, they have the CF. We don't have the CF. We have the CFTs on our jet. Conformal fuel
CFT is a
conformal fuel tank. Yeah,
there you go.
It gives us the extra range. It also gives us the hard points along there, so we can carry our weapons out there, which was mainly our mission in the Strike Eagle and the mud hen was the interdiction. Right, we could self escort, interdiction, and strike, and then come back. But we needed to have the hard points, and the C model doesn't have any of that. So the conformal fuel tanks gives us extra fuel capacity as well as the hard points to put on the GBUs, the guided bomb units, the LGBs, we call them laser guided bombs. We'd put those on there. That was a monstrous difference between the C model and the E model was the conformal fuel tanks.
Okay.
And those are the things that would bleed our performance off too, because obviously clean without those on there. And they were good for, I think, was about 8. Trying to think of what the weight was back then. It was been a while. 8 or 9,000 pounds of fuel, something like that.
Okay.
Was how much fuel it had. Something in there. I could be off.
A little over 1,000 gallons.
Yeah, and a lot of drag. A lot of drag. But it would shift the CG on the airplane so you could actually get some really good nose rate on it. But it would bleed off energy quite a bit.
Okay.
Compared to a clean Eagle. So that was one. And then but that's also what gave us all our capability, right? So we would not need to have like an F-16, which is an amazing jet, huge respect for them and what they bring to the fight, but they're limited on their fuel. And now I think they've incorporated those CFTs on the top of their fuselage on some variants of their jets, but they were limited on fuel. And when you load up a Viper with all the same stuff that we have, the performance obviously dwindles quite a bit too. We have it on all the time. They don't. There you can see there's a good picture there. And the lantern pods. You can see the lantern pod on that one picture, which is the what we use to designate targets and lays in bombs.
Right.
And then obviously the fuel tanks that are the drop tanks on the wings, and then the hard points for the 120s and the AIM-9s out there. And the heaters are AIM-9s, heat-seeking missiles.
Very cool.
Yeah, the guns. That was always the fun one. Was the heaters. Obviously, the 15 with at the time. I mean, I'm sure a lot of this stuff has changed now with the latest generation fighters. But we were a much bigger cross section. It was like a flying tennis court, and then some, a doubles match for the family model, right? 15. And we had a great radar, so you really weren't going to get to the merge in substandard fighter. So in order to make it equal, I mean, Hornet's not going to make it, right? But they could be the great equalizer when you hit the merge and you just say, hey, no radar missiles, just heaters and guns. And that was kind of fun for everybody because it was really down to pilot maneuvering.
Right. I mean, every now and then, Fig, did you ever fight a 15?
Yeah.
Yeah. So every now and then we'd go out there and do it, and it was surreal, right? I mean, at least the Eagle guys would come in and fight with us. The 16 drivers would always go to 40,000 feet, shoot me in the face from 40 miles, do a split S, shoot me in the ass with a heater on the way by, and go, that's it, fight's over, 2 kills. And I'm like, yeah, I got no training out of that. I was flying straight and level. So, but thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for that.
Yeah, but at least the Eagles would turn with you and have some fun, you know.
Yeah, the turning, we always we use this term as like you're a $50 million jet at 50 miles to down to 20 miles, and you became like a $20 million jet inside 20 and a $10 million jet at 10 miles, and you're a $500,000 jet at the merge, which is everybody's equal now.
Yeah.
You can't use all your technology and your weapons.
Right. But that was a beauty. Right. You didn't need to with, you know.
Yeah.
So, and we were just a, you know, stick and rudder airplane with no radar. And you
guys deployed over to the UK too? Because I did fight some Harriers over there too.
We never did when we were in the squadron. The only deployment we did to Europe was a NATO exercise above the Arctic Circle in Norway in February.
Okay. Yeah.
It
was cold, but at least it was windy.
Twice. Yeah, it was great.
Were your Harriers a little more maneuverable than the Brit ones, or are they different?
You know, it's basically the same plane. We only had 3 hard points. They had 4. So they were probably, if they had everything on their hard points, we were probably carrying around less weight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'd see those guys out there in that airspace, and we'd fight, and it was always a lot of fun. Go against the Harriers.
Tell me about the rescue of Scott O'Grady. What was your involvement in that?
So I was on that mission to rescue Scott O'Grady. I was a wingman at the time. I think Mort was leading us out there. And, of course, that was when the Bosnian War was going on, the Serbians. That's why we were down there.
Before you continue there, Sniper, let's do a quick recap. Scott O'Grady was flying F-16 above an overcast over Bosnia, right? And he got bagged by a SA-6.
Yeah.
So he was shot
O'Grady.
Down. Yep.
Here he
shot
is.
Down behind basically behind enemy lines.
Yeah, there he is, Scott O'Grady.
Yep. Scott O'Grady.
So we were deployed out there, and we'd get this different tasking, and obviously things were heating up, and you already set it up really nicely. An aircraft went down. We didn't know who it was. We just knew it was our jet that had gone down, and they were doing a big search and rescue mission, trying to find this guy, and everything was pretty secretive at the time. We didn't get a lot of intel on it, but then we'd get these different taskings, and some of them we'd think, oh, maybe this is going to be the tasking to rescue, or maybe it's just a standard tasking to go out there. But we ended up getting a tasking to have this bigger package go out to essentially rescue Scott O'Grady. And I remember being out over the Adriatic, we hit the tanker and got our gas, and we were doing this cap. And
define what a cap is.
Combat Air Patrol. It's the little holding pattern we're going to put basically keep the airspace sanitized and clean of enemy aircraft.
There you go. Thank you.
And engage if you need to. So we did the cap, and then we had other assets in the air. We had Marines that were out there in the Adriatic. I believe you guys had a helicopter. We had special C-130s out there. This entire group of people, joint coordination, marshaling forces out over the Adriatic to go in and rescue Scott O'Grady. And I remember all the radio chatter I'd hear because they were literally going in there to rescue this guy. And you guys have probably read the book. He wrote a book called Return with Honor. It explains everything. He was not in captivity, but he evaded enemy forces for like 7 days or something like that. Dogs were going after him and everything. And nobody was really certain at the time if it was really the guy, if it was really Scott O'Grady, or if it was some kind of a trap.
Trying to lure you in, right?
People are getting lured in. but they had enough intel to want to press the mission. So they did. Got in there. And then I remember while I was in the cap that they picked them up. They had a word that they used, that they picked them up, they rescued the asset, and they were going back out feet wet. So they're still over the land. And I was like, yes, cheering, super happy. And I heard them starting to get shot at, right? You guys have heard all the mud launch and everything. Mud's when you got the enemy ground fire coming up at you and you're reacting off of that threats, and the A-10s were in the air. Everybody was in the air. And I thought, man, there's no way, because if they got a C-130s, those guys are going down. It's going to be a tough road to hoe to get out of the Indian country there. But they did. They ended up getting feet wet, and he landed. I think they extracted him on a helicopter and landed on an LHX, if that's the right term that they use for the Marines. And he ended up getting back, and nobody lost. There's nobody got hit, no casualties on there, but it just felt really good at that. I remember as an American, what we're willing to do to rescue, people that go down and take care of our own. It was a real tribute, testament to what we're able to do as a nation and how we are able to come together and rescue our colleagues.
That's a great story.
That is a great story.
Bonhomme Richard? Bonhomme
Richard.
Richard. That was the assault ship that the rescue operation came off of.
Yeah. It was amazing. And then found out, I saw him in the O Club shortly thereafter. I know he went on and did his own separate thing, but actually Scott O'Grady had to been one of my classmates when I was in college, and didn't realize that at the time, because I didn't know it was O'Grady. I didn't know it was him, but it was kind of special.
I passed him in O'Hare in between. I was changing planes. Yeah. And he was going the other way. That was when he was, doing the book tour and the speaking engagements. He was changing planes. I was changing planes. I saw him go the other way. I knew who he was. I'm like, there's Scott O'Grady.
Yeah.
All right.
It was pretty special. Yeah.
Nice. Nice. So you got another note here about being over the AOR and feeling kind of lonely.
Yeah. Why is nobody
Why are you
else
lonely?
flying? What the F?
Remember I said earlier, you're kind of, you're young, how much I've changed, or how much we've changed from our young ages, growing up and going in the military and having a exposure to real life, And so I started flying airplanes, as I said, when I was in high school. I loved aviation. That was what I wanted to do. And I think it struck me. It's kind of embarrassing, but you're innocent at the time, and you're not at the same time innocent. You're still juvenile and you're still learning about the world. And I remember, so we would take off out of Incirlik, as a matter of fact. And we were in this, again, very new lieutenant, probably right after I got my Divot call sign, and it just kind of struck me, that what we're doing. We go up to the tanker. We go along the northern border of Syria, and you're still in Turkey, going into the AOR, the area of operations. And we normally rendezvous with the tanker up there and get our top off, and then go into, in this case, northern Iraq, sanitize the airspace, and do the combat air patrol that we talked about, that CAP, patrolling the airspace. The tanker, by the way, it's just beautiful up there. I don't know if you guys have done any air refueling up over there in northern Turkey, but that's Mount Ararat, and where supposedly Noah's Ark is, possibly one of the locations. It's just beautiful, beautiful mountains up there, gorgeous there. It looks, I think that might be over the Adriatic, but it's just gorgeous up there. We come off there, and you're just taking this all in. I mean, you're asking me about pilot training and where I went to lead-in fighter training and all that stuff, but sometimes it just doesn't really hit you. What you're doing here is very serious business. It's the the tip of the sword for foreign policy. But I remember being in the CAP and just circling around thinking, man, it's just such a gorgeous day. It's just beautiful. And we're flying over these old air bases. Tal Afar, it's one of the air bases that they had there in northern Iraq. And Erbil, it's like someone said it was, I don't know how many thousand years old city, one of the oldest cities in the world. It's concentric circles.
Okay.
All around.
Yeah, it's beautiful there. Erbil is beautiful. It's
gorgeous, right?
Yeah, it really is.
And I remember just kind of being in the moment, thinking, man, this is just. I wonder why aren't the other aircraft? Isn't everybody flying today?
They did not. There was a reason.
Should be flying today. It's beautiful out here.
There was a reason.
Yeah. And then it's a fleeting thought, like, why isn't everybody out there flying? Because that's what I was doing less than like 10 years ago. I was learning to fly private pilot, right? And now 10 years later, less than 10 years later, I'm over here doing this, wondering why everybody's not taking advantage of the wonderful weather. And you look out over your wing and you see those AIM-120s out there, and you realize, this is that they're probably not flying because we're up here right now.
Yeah.
which is kind of a stupid moment, but it kind of, I guess there's probably a time in everybody's life when it hits them that what you're doing is real.
Yeah.
It's not a game, and it's serious business. And it just kind of melded at that time for me.
You were the bird of prey.
We were the bird of prey.
The other birds were like, get it.
Why the hell would they be flying if we're up here, right?
Right.
Think I'll stay home today.
Yeah.
Oh man! Speaking of birds, sounds like you had a flight leader lose his jet thanks to a bird.
Oh yeah, that takes us right. We've got to moonwalk back over to Lakenheath, back to the UK, and this was when I think it was just about MR. MR is mission ready, and then MQ, which is mission qual. So you go through this training program. I think I don't know how informed your listeners are, so I don't want to insult them. But once you get your wings in the Air Force, you then transition to what they call MWS, your major weapons system.
Okay.
But you're not a flight lead or anything like that. You're just a beginner. You're a student, still learning how to employ the jet. And
that's what those gringos call it. Just a wingman. Just a wingman.
Just a wingman, right? Just a wingman.
Tell us what to do.
We ended up then finishing up at RTU, which is the replacement training unit. I think you guys call it the RAG or something.
Yep.
Yeah. Then you go to the squadron, and then you have more training in the squadron, 3 months long, or I forget how long. It depends on the deployments and the phase, the number of IPs and everything that's in there. But you're coming up to speed to just become a wingman before you're signed off to go off on normal missions with normal flight leads. So it was somewhere around that time. And we did our normal briefings, and briefings, of course, were all new-ish to me as a lieutenant. We did some of them in the RTU, but it was a little bit more thorough, and they'd cover a ton of information. And they talked about, passing off the lead and all the hand signals, review all those kinds of things if we need to have it. So we're cruising down there in two-ship. Grunt was the flight lead, and Greasy was in the back seat of his jet, and I was flying with a guy named Goose. And
we were flying with Goose?
Oh,
Goose, man. Good guy. He's a great guy, actually. Loved Corvettes, Mr. Corvette. And we're pushing it up, that same deal, doing, close to 600 knots, going from IP inbound. And I'm getting back into position. We're supposed to be in this wedge position. It's basically about a 2 miles spread off of your flight lead and in position of mutual support, and wedge, because it's like a wedge of cheese. You're back there. You can see them at maybe your 10 o'clock position. And you're going pretty fast. And I remember
you were down low, correct? You were down low.
Down low, yeah. We were super low, down at 250 feet and speed of heat kind of thing. And you're trying to get into position at the same time. So you're looking out, make sure you don't hit the rocks, and at the same time you don't hit your flight lead. And I looked over at the flight lead to give to do basically a calibration on my own position. And as I looked over again at him, I see this like glitter coming off the back of his jet, a bunch of junk stunts, tinsel, the tinsels that you're on a Christmas tree. Yeah. Like, what the hell is that? But he's still kind of small, right? Because, you're 2 miles away or a mile and a half away. I close back up on him, and he starts immediately, like I'm gaining 3-9 advantage on him instantly, coming up a beam versus in the wedge position. Yeah. And I immediately pull back, because you don't want to be out of position as a wingman. As I pull back, I see him climbing up, which made it easier for me to see. And as I watched him climb up, and it all happened like in slow motion, I see this like flash coming off the back of his jet as he's pitching up. And I see this crap come off from his jet as I'm basically passing him, closing in. And I see a guy come out of the back seat, chute comes out of the back seat. And I'm thinking both of them are coming out because we had this thing called aft initiate. When one guy punches out, the other guy goes too. Yeah. And I'm waiting for this jet to basically pitch back down and impact the ground. And it never happened. And so I'm looking back over my shoulder, my left shoulder. We hit mark point so that we could get the position right away. And that drops the coordinates in there so we can come back there and find it. And I'm trying to debate, am I supposed to go with the jet in front that hasn't crashed yet? Or am I supposed to go back to the guy in the chute? I never saw the other chute. I circled back around and I came towards him just a little bit, maybe 30 degrees of turn. And I go back towards the flight lead that's still flying, thinking, oh my God, he's still in the jet. Grunt's still flying. Of course, he's in a convertible now.
Yeah.
Everything's off the airplane. He does that thing we talked about in the brief where he gives you the hand signals to go from 2 to 1, passes me the lead. And I'm thinking, oh my God, where the hell am I going to take him? Of course, he briefed it. We're supposed to go out. There's a point out there in Wales called Valley Airfield. So I basically turned towards Valley Airfield and I got the backseater Goose. He's like literally spot tracking with the pod, his noggin on his noggin in the cockpit, so that we can watch him and see if he's injured, right? And try to talk to him. This other guy here tells me, the flight lead Grunt, he tells me, hey, you got the lead. And so I basically haul ass over towards Wales, and I'm trying to go fast because I think he's hurt. And he's like, you're going too fast. You're going too fast. He takes the lead back from me and ends up going back into Valley Airfield. And I flew on his wing all the way in, dropped him off. And he did fine. Apparently a bird had gone they had some big birds down there, had gone right. If you look at the Strike Eagle, it's got the canopy bow. Okay. And the canopy, behind the canopy bow, it continues up higher. So it hit right near the canopy bow where it literally blasted. It went like through the canopy and blasted out the back and blew off the canopy. It shattered it. That was all the glitter that we saw.
Oh, okay.
It literally shattered the canopy in a bunch of million pieces.
Gave Rizzo probably a cardiac arrest about that time because
he didn't know, right? Because all of that stuff was in his face, and some of that's why we had our visors down and everything. He didn't know. He couldn't hear anything.
Yeah.
And he just thought, I don't know what's going on. I'm getting out of the jet. Can't see.
Right.
And he's lucky to make it out, actually, because there's no wind airflow going over the canopy to pull that canopy off. And then
okay.
Right?
Could you not go through that canopy on an eject?
No, we didn't have it like the Harrier. We had that the blast strip on there. I guess you could go through it, but you may not live.
Yeah.
You're supposed to pop off
we
first,
we had a little breaker bar on the top of the seat too. We
would
were
break
going
the canopy,
through it, whether it blew or not.
Yeah,
we were going to go through it.
We'll go through it, but I think you're going to die. Didn't you guys have an explosive charge or something?
Yes, we did. Right? Yeah, there was det cord attached to the top of the canopy, and
there was also breaker bar on top of the back
big
of the
punch.
seat.
Yeah, to punch through the canopy.
So that
there was. We had that Aces 2 ejection sheet. Little breaker bar out there. But even then, with the sequencing, the way it works, if you don't have that wind blowing off, I guess you'd still go through the canopy. There's no canopy there, but who knows if that sequence would be messed up.
Yeah.
With the separation of the canopy and the seat going up, maybe get a necktie or something from the canopy.
All right.
So he did that. We dropped him off and we coordinated search and rescue. I remember we pushed it up and ended up going like almost super over the land to go back towards Greasy to try to find him, and we pulled him up on comm. And in Wales, like you said earlier, with the language, a country separated by
by common
there's
language.
Guys that are over there trying to rescue him from this little village, and he literally couldn't understand anything they were saying, and they're supposedly speaking English, but they could understand him speaking Welsh or something.
There's the rub, if they've been drinking or they're excited, they start to, you don't know what the hell they're saying, and then they get mad that you don't understand what they're saying.
All their words are full of consonants, right? There's like no vowels.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, too funny.
What's this? Engine failure over the North Sea. Windmill.
Oh man, that was, that's a short story in there. So we're taking off out of Lakenheath, going out over the North Sea. And it was one of those deals where you had weather that was literally down to minimums, 200 standard English day, 200 feet, kind of sort of thing. And the milk bowl all the way up to the top of, the moon, basically. I think it was around 30,000 feet. We're pressing out doing a 4-ship. And I was an element lead. And as we were pushing out over the ranges there, out over the water, the airplane starts vibrating real bad. And I'm like, oh, okay, what's that? I check down there and look at your engine instruments. Engine number 2 engine, I think it was having a big problem, shitting itself. So I ended up pulling it back and I had to shut the engine down. And of course, at that altitude, with all your draggy wing tanks and everything on there, you start losing altitude and performance. So cleared myself off. The flight lead took the rest of it. The 4-ship flight lead took the rest of it. I took mine. We went in the clouds, so there's no mutual support for number 4. So he went on and did a 3-ship. And I went ahead and recovered back to Lakenheath, a single engine. But one of the things on the F-15 is the hydraulics. As the engine starts up, you can even see it too on some of the start videos where it makes that real interesting whine, like, and then the hydraulics spin up and you can see the flight controls start to kind of come to life a little bit. But that happens around, I think it was, if my memory might be wrong, about 18% or 20% or something like that, what they call windmilling hydraulics. And I remember going back through the soup all the way down from 30,000 feet to try to shoot an ILS into Lakenheath to recover the jet. And as I'm getting down into final single engine, and we got these little displays on the, and Strike Eagle has this, basically there's no real good instruments, right? It's just that little peanut gauge. So I'm doing this ILS. We have the HUD and everything, but I can't see anything. It's just the symbology. So I'm flying by instruments all the way down, and around 1,000 feet or so, I'm starting to slow down, getting the gear down. That windmilling hydraulics, as the engine starts spooling down, it goes through this transient thing as it passes through 18% or 20%. And what it does is it kicks your hydraulics on and it puts these massive flight control excursions onto your jet when you're on final approach. And I remember getting like 90 degrees of bank at like 300 feet trying to get in the weather. Yeah, it because the engines are rolling back. The number 2 engine is rolling back from that transient hydraulics. So I'm going in there. I mean, it's totally controllable, but it's like somebody's kicking you or something. It's so foreign now in the environment I'm flying currently. Oh yeah, something like that happen. But in a fighter, yeah. Well, dude, I'm not going around on that one. So I coming in, I'm getting these like 70, 80, 90 degrees of transients coming in on short final to land the jet single engine out of an ILS. And of course I break out of the weather and in a big old bank and fix it real quick and land. But what happened was we lost an engine bearing. I think it was an oil engine bearing, and it crapped itself. Yeah.
Nicely done. That I'm a little unnerved by the whole transitory flight control input.
What's with that?
Unusual attitudes at 300 feet.
Who designed that into the system?
It spikes the system. Yeah, because the hydraulics are coming on and then off, and it kicks them basically. The transient hydraulics. It's a windmilling hydraulic thing for our jet. Yeah, that was kind of a fun day.
Did you? So you and I had this conversation briefly, but I see in one of your notes collapse a hang glider at low level. Was that in Europe?
Oh yeah. I'll skip on. I think
you're going to skip on that one. Okay, all right.
Yeah.
How about this? Intercepted by Mirages.
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
So
with no dip clearance over France.
Yeah. There's the punch right there, right? So
how's set this up? How does this work?
Yeah. So so all this foreign policy stuff that we started talking about earlier, there's all these agreements that we have with different countries on how many assets can be in country at one time. And there's a lot of rules on whether or not, if those jets are still there, if there's going to be penalties, because every country we go to, we're guests, right? So we have to adhere to their rules. We're guests.
Sure.
And we have a commitment to Northern Watch to meet our force protection, but you got to have X number of assets in place to do that. but you can't have too many. You can't have an overlap of assets at the time, is the way I understood it.
Otherwise, it looks like an invasion type thing.
It looks like an invasion, or they get to keep the air. I'd heard that they actually get to keep the airplanes if there's an overage.
Yeah.
So the Turks would be able to do that. But there's a small window of time. And again, at the time, I was just a company grade officer. So maybe if you guys have somebody on that's a general or something, or 06 that's familiar with all the rules and stuff. This is the way I understood it. So those jets had to leave country, Incirlik Air Base. And we had to replace them at the same time.
Yeah.
Or we'd have a lack of coverage, right? And we would be missing our tasking for what we had to have in country. Or if those jets stayed there and we were inbound and they weren't airborne, then they get to either keep the airplanes or something bad happens. Anyway, so we're taking a bunch of F-15s over back to Incirlik. And the way we did that was took off out of Lakenheath. There was no fueling. We just hopped into down the street over to Sigonella, did the hot pit refueling, and then pressed on into Incirlik over the Mediterranean. But it was coming up to the point where these other jets had to actually leave, or they were going to overstay, and then we'd lose the airplanes. So we ended up actually launching. We had to have these DIP clearances. They call them diplomatic clearances. Clearance to go across every single piece of airspace in Europe.
Sure. And
France was one of them. They were holding us up. And we ended up taking off anyway with no dip clearance. We got cleared to go. They said, no, you got to go. This is more important. So we took off. They're going to work it out en route, supposedly. But we're flying out over France, which we passed the North Sea and into France. And I remember that the French controllers kept talking to us, and they wanted us to have that 3-letter dip code or number dip code.
Okay.
And we didn't have anything. We had nothing. They kept asking
your dip code there?
What is our dip code? Yeah, I think it was Beamer was our call sign. Beamer 91 is confirm the dip clearance.
Yeah.
So,
un, deux, trois.
Yeah, un, deux, trois. We just say again, and it's a short piece of airspace, right? Yeah. It's not that long when you're flying in a jet. But France is a little bit bigger piece of that puzzle. And we're talking to the wingman's talking to me and saying, hey, man, what do you want to do? And we're talking in our aux. I said, dude, don't even answer them. Just we're pressing. Well, what are they going to do?
We're going to blow through here. By the time we figure it out, we'll be gone, right?
Exactly. What are they going to do? Are they going to shoot us down? I mean, that's kind of ridiculous. And we're kind of joking about it and laughing about it. What are they going to shoot us down? We got a mission to do. And sure as shit, I look out over the wing, and there's Mirage 2000s coming. They could do really well. We're up in the 30s, but with that Delta wing, they were coming right up on my wing. And no kidding, 2 of them on either side of the formation. And we're looking over at each other, and I'm looking over, and I wave to him with my nice RAF white gloves I got. And he's waving to me, and he's like trying to tell me to go down like this.
Did you give him the
and I'm like this, and I just give him a thumbs up like that. And I just said, hey, guys, don't respond to them. And they're on guard telling us you have to – I think they wanted us to land at like Cambrai or something. I'd have to go back over the geography again.
They wanted some F-15Es in their
They wanted them, man.
Yeah,
the Turks wanted them, and so did the French.
I'd like to help you lads out. I just don't happen to have approach plates for that destination, so we're going to press.
Damn. So how'd this thing end, man? This sounds like an international incident going on.
We thought it was going to be an international incident, but what are we going to do? So we just ignored him. I kept telling him, don't say anything negative, don't do anything, just keep pressing.
Nice.
We got our own navigation. We can get out of this country and head over towards Spain or wherever it was that connected to. And we did. They literally followed us all the way, trying to show us to basically go down. And we're not doing that. we just kept looking straight ahead, like that meme where the guy's doing that little thing with the side of his eyes. And, we pressed on to SIG, and then we were able to escape without getting shot down. It's like playing chicken a little bit. Who's going to shoot?
I'm assuming they followed you all the way to the border.
They did,
and then they just kind of peeled off. Said,
"You
swine, you English is swine."
You're American, dirty American. But I remember it was so cool because these Mirages, they could perform so well. We're in the mid-30s, right? Pulling contrails and all that stuff, kind of hanging on the blades a little bit. We got our tanks on board and all that stuff, the travel pod. And
sure.
And these Mirage was up next to us. And then as we got basically out of the border, I saw this Mirage just go up this massive vertical, 30, we're in the mid 30s, and he must have gone
gosh.
right up over the top, and there was an Immelman right back and goes 180 degrees opposite of us.
That's because he was about to flame out, and he didn't weigh anything. That's
I think it was
impressive, though.
Yeah, I think it was a combination of anger management and a showboating maneuver that you want to show us.
Did he have anything on his wings to shoot you if he wanted to?
He didn't have anything.
He was clean. Yeah, all right. All he's got is lead. Look ahead.
He could give you the nasty look.
That's right.
Freedom fries. Yeah. So.
Oh man.
It was good though. We made it out there, and I think we ended up passing our other jets that were exiting out over the Mediterranean as we pressed into Turkey after our hot pit.
So your timing was good after all.
It was good, yeah.
Yeah, jets coming in, jets coming out. Can you believe we've been out this an hour and 32 minutes already, Sniper?
Right.
I didn't even get to tell you about my Marine story, but yeah.
Well, let's close out with that. Let's get the Marine story. Fight like a train, and then we'll land the airplane.
Who doesn't like a Marine story?
They're right.
We're crying out loud.
This actually goes back to my original. We were talking about how I ended up coming in here, and I had that little conversation with that Air Force ROTC guy, remember?
Yes.
About going in the Marines. That's what I was doing. I was going in the Marines, and he was talking to me out and telling me one of these days you'll remember what decision you make. And so Aviano again, seems like all this learning's happening at Aviano. We all had in the Air Force, we all had these Alfa Romeo cars from the squadron, the 271s we call them, the enlisted guys that took care of us, and they were great guys. They were part of the family of our squadron. And they were responsible for the maintenance on the cars and the oil. And I don't know how many cars we ended up burning up just running out of oil because we're Air Force pansies and we don't get our hands dirty or anything. We had our accommodations that were down in the town of Pordenone, which was a nice hotel. And we'd always go out to this place called the Perch. And we'd be drinking beverages and having a good time and enjoying the sights and the people. And that's what we did. We'd go to the SOC, the Squadron Operations Center, report for our tasking on the hard side of the base. And when we're done with that, we take our Alfa Romeos and we head back towards the hotel and have our vino. And as I'm doing this, I picked up an Alfa Romeo, a little red one, and I was empty. I was just going home by myself, back to the hotel. And I see this dude in a green bag, and he's walking on this airbase. And so I pulled down, looked like a pilot. So I stopped next to him and looked at him. Hey, brother, wasabi, what's going on? He's like, nothing. I go, where are you walking to? Because there's like nothing around here. And there wasn't. It was like a mile or two out in the middle of nowhere on this walk path he's going on, this base perimeter road. He goes, just go on the other side of the base. I'm like, all right, well, that's not really a short walk. Why don't you hop in? I'll be happy to give you a lift. He goes, oh, thanks. So he gets in the car and, we have a little bit of a chit chat. He's a Marine. And these Marines, at the time, they had these Hornets as well as the Prowlers, EA-6Bs or something. Right, and those things, they were all staged there at Aviano, and they would do these massive engine run-ups. Maintenance was always done at night with the big spotlights that were going off and everything. Yeah. Illuminating the jets, doing all their maintenance stuff. Super, super loud, right? It's basically the end of the runway, like in a hush house or something. And we're talking, going around the other side of the base, and I was explaining to him how much fun we're having. This is really super, doing all this, doing these sorties and missions out over Bosnia. And, we're talking to him about his jet. He's like kind of getting a little more quiet. I said, yeah, we're going downtown. After I drop you off, we're going to go have some more wine. And I haven't seen you guys down there. He's quiet. I go, well, you guys planning on coming down there with us or what? Are you guys in a different spot? He goes, yeah, I guess we're in a different spot, man. I'm like, okay, well, that's cool. So I finally make it around the other side of the base, which would be like 4 miles. It's not a short deal. Right. Getting ready to drop him off. And I said, dude, you ought to come on down or whatever. When you're done with work, come on down and we'll have a hoot. He goes, dude, I am done with work. I go, oh, right here? I go, where are you guys sleeping? He goes, right here at the end of the runway, man. This is our flat or fence or some damn thing like that he had. He was kind of getting visibly perturbed.
Welcome to the Corps.
And I said, man, I'm sorry about that. That's terrible. He goes, that's right, man. You got to train like you fight. As he's getting out of the door. And I said, but we are fighting. Because we were, right? I go, but we are fighting right now. He goes, he pauses for like 2 seconds. He goes, "Yeah, have a nice Air Force day," and he slams the door.
Oh shit!
Yeah. You go have yourself a nice Air Force day. And then like right there is where it actually connected with me.
Yeah.
When that colonel said, one of these days you'll realize that the Air Force and the other branches of service do things a little bit different. And I have huge, huge respect for the Marines. I really do. You guys put up with some amazing conditions and endure.
Live on a shoestring.
We would never imagine.
Yeah,
Truly.
like you said. Yeah. Well, that's excellent. I'm glad we finished with that because that that came full circle. And, yeah. Well, dude, first of all, on behalf of all of us here at the So There I Was, which I'm speaking for all four of us, myself, Repeat, my man Sticks, and Bago, thank you for your service to our country. And thanks for not dying, because if you died, we wouldn't get these great stories.
Right?
Yeah, right back at you guys. Thank you so much for your service and what you're doing. And I just got water right now, but we'll lift a glass to all the brothers, that some of them that we've lost and some that are still with us. And
Indeed.
Appreciate all you guys, all the branches.
Thank you. That's a perfect segue, my friend. Here's a salute to all of our military veterans and the families.
Yeah, absolutely.
Them in their mission. Here's to you.
Absolutely, man.
They are the ones that sacrifice. A couple other quick thank yous we need to get to. We've got Dave Hamilton, who has 3 shows of his own, the Gig Gab, the Business Brain, and the Mac Geek Gab. Those shows can be found wherever you find your podcasts.
Hey, there's a Sticks just put this up. We should say this. We should get this out there. Special shout out to U.S. Coast Guard Air Station. Is that ACY Atlantic City?
Yeah, Atlantic City. That's right.
They're on the front. They're on the front line. They're on the front line of the whole Key Bridge disaster. They've been out there flying and helping with the search and rescue and all that. So
and the guardsmen there on the boats and
there they are. A big shout out to them. Thank you.
Big thanks, man.
Yeah.
What else?
They're doing it real every day. Speaking of train like you fight, they're fighting every day.
So, every day.
Yeah, indeed. So,
Backmeat Media. That's all of our advertising is handled by backmeatmedia.com. Thank you to our man. Say it.
Dave.
Do it.
Big Dave Hamilton.
Dave Hamilton.
Backmeatmedia.com.
Big Dave Hamilton.
Yep. And helping us out there. Also, we've got a glossary. So if we've said some terms here tonight and I didn't circle back to them and get them what they were, write to us at repeat@sothereIwas.us, fig@sothereIwas.us, and if you want a correct answer, write to sticks@sothereIwas.us, and tell us to get that up on the glossary, and we'll take care of that there for you.
Hey, real quick. I had this in my notes. Real quick. Hot pits. I think we covered this. Can you explain? I mean, we know what they are, but for the non-aviation people that listen to this, what is a hot pit?
Hot pit, real quick summary, is you pull in and get gas. Obviously, these jets burn a lot of gas. And in the case of the Eagles, 3,000 pounds a minute in full AB. So you're thirsty, but you got to turn the jet. So you leave one engine running, and these guys will come up to you and literally fuel you up while your engine is running. And we call that hot pit refueling. So we don't shut down. We just
a full-service gas station. Well,
perfect. Yeah. That's
except they don't change your oil and clean your windscreen.
Thank you, sir. So now we have merchandise at sothereiwas.us/merch. And by the way, I just ordered some shirts, and I think I owe some money. Repeat.
Yeah, well, species occurs.
When it finished. When I finished ordering, I never really put anything in. I think it was on your account, so you need to let me know.
There you go.
It's
there you go. $300, Fig. That's what you owe me.
Whoa,
$300.
Whoa.
Yeah,
like $6.
Special price for you today only. So yeah, our merch store. So thereIwas.us/merch. Get yourself a cool shirt, hat, beach towel, clock. What else, Fig? What else do you always remember to mention? A bikini.
Listen, we have a bikini on our merch site.
Yeah.
So, Sniper, I got a feeling you may know somebody that would look good in that bikini. You need to take a look at that.
There you go.
All right, we'll do that. Merch. Definitely.
And speaking of fueling and tanks and all that stuff, keeping our tanks full so that we can keep this show coming to you it's not a cheap proposition. There's a lot of subscriptions and equipment and everything else that goes into this. And we're able to do that because people are going to sothereiwas.us/Patreon and contributing to the show. anywhere from $5 a month on the way up to tanker aircraft commander. Oh boy, Sal. Chucker's in his own category.
Yeah.
Sal's right behind him. We appreciate all of you. If you can only throw a few bucks at us, that's a huge help, more than you can imagine. Or SoThereIWas.us/donate. There's a page there where you can donate to us directly instead of Patreon. Choice is yours. Either way, we know that your hard-earned money goes into your wallet, and you're choosing to take it out and put it towards us so we can bring these shows to you is humbling and a huge honor. So thank you to all who do that.
Very humbling. Thank you.
Man.
What else? What do we got?
Well,
Big
what do we
shout
want
out
to do
to,
if how are we going to get to more people? What's the best and quickest way?
Here's the deal. You know, we are trainable. So if you could give us a 5-star rating, that is just outstanding. If you can't give us a 5-star rating, tell us what it is that would get us to 5 stars, because we're trainable. Right? Most of us are.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, Sticks is, and
Yeah.
I am. I can't really say you.
I don't know if I am or not, but, you know.
Oh, come on. Of course you're trainable. Look at it.
So,
a couple of maroons.
Exactly. But and then share the show. If everybody listening to this show would just share it with one other person, we double over a week the number of listeners that we have. We're still growing, and we appreciate it. And we've gotten some amazing letters from people who have just found us. And one guy said he's in full afterburning, catching up. He's already up to show 50, so he's halfway there.
We're so blessed because we're just a couple knuckleheads doing this thing, getting everybody to tell their stories, and it's just blossomed.
Yeah, it is amazing.
This is going to be episode 101. Think about that.
Right?
Yeah.
We're still doing it almost 2 years later. So we also need to thank, we've already mentioned him a couple times here tonight, Sticks. Thank you, Sticks, for all the help you give us. He's found people for us. He does show production. He's co-hosted, a man of all trades. So thank you very much, Sticks. And Bago, who runs our Facebook page over at facebook.com/sothereiwas.us. He runs herd on that, which is a huge help to me because I can't be on there every day. And that's a big deal. And then, of course, Brad Silcott at bdsaviationphotography.com. I think he may still be listening here with us tonight. Amazing aviation photographs and art. And thank you for letting us use your photographs.
Just some comment. I'm not going to read it. Something about we need a bikini picture. All right.
So your wives are demoing out?
Well, I would love to get a picture of my wife in the So There I Was bikini.
Oh, I got one.
Not be seen.
I'll send it to you.
You see how you guys just tag team me on that? Well, that was absolutely that was no coordination. Well done, gentlemen. Well done. Hey, those in the background, those are the two guys that make the Air Force F-16 pilots sound good. Actually, let's just say it how it is. They make the Air Force sound good. Those are the Dos Gringos. Thank you for letting us use your music. They're great. Also, great guests on our show. They have 4 albums out there. There's not one bad song on
Not a one.
those albums.
Not a one.
Matter of fact, we talked about one of them today. The Wingman.
There we go. The great song. That's a fantastic one.
It is a fan. They're all of the songs.
They all are.
They're great.
So, all right. Yeah. So until next week, everybody, stay safe and check 6.
Well, there I was, crossing the pond, and you could see that I wasn't exactly fond of all the shit I was wearing on that day. Now an F-16 is cramped enough, but it's even worse with all that stuff supposed to save your life. But we knew there was no way. Cause when you're going down the North Atlantic, man, it's over.
It's what?
He said it's over. What?
Picked the wrong week to quit sniffing glue.
And we're out.
Boom!
Perfect.
Sniper!
Right.
Don't log out yet, Sniper.
Yeah,
Don't log out yet.
Don't go nowhere. Yep. So
All right, sorry, brother.
We gotta see where we're at here. You are Sticks is complete.
well, hey, let's bring Sticks
Sniper's
back in here, and
uploading,
he'll be
uploading.
incomplete again. So
What?
everyone else
Did he
is still
leave?
uploading. Nope. Brought him back.
There he is. He's
Yeah.
back. Okay. Jeez,
So-
why is it so slow tonight?
Great production.
You know, there was
Well-
a bunch of been some serious solar electromagnetic interference. And hey, is anybody flying on the 8th?
I am actually. Yeah.
Well,
No, I
maybe
get
you
home.
should
I
say
get
that
home.
day.
I'll be home by then.
You'll be home by the time the eclipse happens.
Yeah. Let's see. The 8th
Okay.
is. I'm flying the.
That's a Monday.
Yeah. I'm flying the 1st through the 5th. So I'll be home on the 8th, so I can stare at the sun directly. I don't need a. There you go.
Sniper, that was great, dude. How did that go? I mean, did the time go fast for you? Because it went fast for me.
It went by super fast, and I was talking a lot. So I was like, well, I don't know. Maybe you want a lot more back and forth.
That was
No,
perfect.
you were no.
That was
You
perfect.
were awesome.
Yeah, who's your mascot there?
Yeah. This one's a cockadoodle.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a
Oh, they're awesome. Yeah. Portuguese. Yeah. They're great. Yeah. This thing here is damn high maintenance.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Oh, hold on. So let me do this. Yeah, we're not off the air. We're still live streaming. So everybody, take care. Thank you for joining us. We're going to kill it. So it's just the four of us chatting, and we can say real names and real companies. And seriously, until next week, check 6. See ya.
peace.
Nope.